Rejection. It's one of the few experiences that can cut through the armor of even the strongest mind. It can come quietly, like a message left unread, or it can hit like a storm, a job turned down, a friendship that fades, a love that chooses someone else. Most people take rejection as a verdict on their worth, a declaration that they're not enough. But the Stoics saw it differently. To them, rejection wasn't punishment. It was clarity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed." He meant that the true wound of rejection doesn't come from the world. It comes from the way we interpret it. The Stoic's mind transforms rejection from something personal into something instructive. It's not, "They don't want me," but "Life is redirecting me." Think of it. Every time someone walks away from you, every time a door closes, something ancient inside you wakes up. The part that's built for endurance. Epictetus, once a slave, understood this better than anyone. When others denied him freedom, he realized that they could control his body, but never his response. That's the first secret of Stoic strength. You can't control who rejects you, but you can control what that rejection turns you into. The modern world hides this truth behind the noise of social media validation and constant approval seeking. We've been taught that likes, attention, and acceptance equal worth. Yet the Stoics would say, if your peace depends on other people's approval, then you've already handed them the keys to your soul. Imagine someone who just faced rejection. Maybe they were ignored after showing vulnerability or turned down for a dream opportunity. Their mind spins with questions. Why me? What's wrong with me? But a Stoic doesn't dwell there. They pause. They take a mental step back as if rising above their own emotions, and they observe. Marcus Aurelius used to practice this detachment daily. In his private journal, he'd write to himself as if advising another person. Calm, logical, wise. He trained his mind to treat every emotional storm as a passing cloud. To him, rejection was not a sign of failure, but a test of mastery. Could he remain centered when the world chose otherwise? And that's what separates the broken from the unbreakable. The Stoics understood that the world owes you nothing. Not love, not friendship, not recognition. And when you finally stop expecting those things, rejection loses its power. The person who can stand in front of rejection and still say, "This is not the end of me," becomes untouchable. In the coming moments, you'll discover 5 timeless Stoic ways to handle rejection, not just to endure it, but to use it as fuel for transformation. But before that, consider this question. When someone rejects you, are they really rejecting you, or are they simply revealing what they value? The answer to that question will change how you see every rejection from this moment forward. 1. Reframe rejection as redirection. Every rejection hides a redirection, but most people never stay calm long enough to see it. The Stoics believed that life, like a wise teacher, never denies without reason. When something or someone rejects you, it's not chaos, it's choreography. There's a direction hidden beneath the pain. Seneca once wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." Rejection is that friction, uncomfortable, often painful, but necessary for refinement. It strips away illusion and forces alignment with something greater. Think of how the Stoic emperor Marcus Aurelius rose to power. His reign was never one of ease. He was constantly opposed, betrayed, and questioned by those closest to him. Even within his own court, he was rejected for his patience, misunderstood for his calmness. Yet he never saw these moments as misfortune. Instead, he believed they were preparing him to rule with wisdom instead of anger. Each rejection revealed who he could trust, and more importantly, who he couldn't become. Modern life amplifies rejection in ways ancient Stoics could never have imagined. A single message left unseen can spiral into anxiety. A job interview gone silent can feel like proof of inadequacy. But a Stoic sees the situation as data, information about where not to place their energy. Rejection becomes feedback. It says, not this path. It doesn't say, you're unworthy. When one learns to read rejection in this way, life becomes a map rather than a maze. Consider the story of someone pouring their heart into a dream project, only to be told no. In that instant, pain floods the mind. The heart races, the ego screams. But if they pause and recall Epictetus's teaching, that it's not events themselves, but our judgments about them that disturb us, something shifts. The pain doesn't vanish, but it transforms. Miss the no turns from a wall into a mirror, reflecting where we need to grow stronger. That's the power of Stoic perception. It doesn't erase emotion, it educates it. The modern Stoic knows that rejection is never final. It's feedback from the universe that says, adjust your course, not your worth. The friend who stops calling may be making space for solitude and self-reliance. The opportunity that slipped away may be protecting you from a life misaligned with your nature. In time, these redirections reveal patterns, a quiet intelligence guiding your growth. Marcus wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That's the Stoic paradox. Rejection is not a barrier, it's the bridge to something purer, sharper, and truer. So, the next time someone rejects you, don't rush to fill the silence with self-doubt. Sit in that space. Ask yourself, what is life redirecting me toward? What truth is this moment trying to teach me? If you can face rejection without bitterness, you've already begun to transcend it. Because what most people call rejection, the Stoic calls refinement. But the question remains, how do you stop your emotions from taking control in that moment, when the pain feels real, raw, and consuming? That's where the second Stoic way begins, learning how to detach emotionally, not by becoming cold, but by becoming clear. 2. Detach emotionally. Feel without falling. When rejection hits, emotion comes first. The body tightens, the chest burns, the mind starts racing through every memory, trying to make sense of what went wrong. The Stoics never denied this. They knew that emotion is natural. It's what follows emotion that defines us. Epictetus reminded his students, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. In rejection, this truth becomes vital. You can't always stop the sting, but you can decide whether that sting poisons you or purifies you. The Stoics practiced a form of emotional distancing called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of adversity. They would visualize loss, failure, and rejection before it happened. Why? Because by rehearsing the worst in the mind, they robbed it of its power. When reality finally delivered a blow, it was met not with panic, but with preparedness. Marcus Aurelius would begin each day reminding himself that he would meet meddlers, ingrates, the arrogant, deceitful, and envious. He didn't do this to become cynical, but to remain calm when others acted as people inevitably do. In modern life, most people do the opposite. They expect approval, praise, and validation, and when they don't get it, they break. Emotional attachment to outcomes is what gives rejection its power. But a Stoic removes that power by separating effort from result. You give your best, and then you let go. You control your actions, not the world's response to them. Once this mindset becomes natural, rejection stops feeling personal. It becomes part of the process, the cost of participation in life. Imagine someone standing on a stage, delivering their heart to an audience that doesn't applaud. To most, that silence would feel like death, but the Stoic would see it differently. The performance was my duty. The reaction is their freedom. This mental shift is the essence of detachment, not apathy, but sovereignty. You still care, but you're not controlled. You still feel, but you don't fall. Seneca once advised, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Rejection often lives longer in our imagination than it does in the actual world. Hours, even days later, we replay it, feeding the flame. The Stoic breaks this loop by observing thoughts without becoming them. This is emotional alchemy, transforming raw emotion into wisdom. Instead of asking, "Why did they reject me?" the Stoic asks, "Why do I need their acceptance so badly?" One question leads to suffering, the other leads to strength. The modern Stoic practices emotional detachment daily, through journaling, mindfulness, or reflection. They don't numb themselves, they train themselves. Like a warrior sharpening his blade, they prepare for the inevitable moments when life doesn't go their way. When that moment comes, they breathe deeply, observe the emotion rising, and say to themselves, "This is only a signal, not a sentence." When rejection no longer stirs chaos within you, you gain an extraordinary kind of freedom, the freedom of inner stability. And with that stability comes clarity. Because only when the storm inside you settles can you truly see what lies ahead. But this clarity reveals something deeper, a truth the Stoics knew well. Sometimes, rejection isn't meant to teach you about others. It's meant to expose you, to show you your ego, your hidden expectations, your dependency on being chosen. The third Stoic way dives into this, how rejection becomes a mirror that reflects who you really are. 3. Use rejection as a mirror. Not a verdict, rejection doesn't just reveal what others think of you. It reveals what you think of yourself. The Stoics believed that external events, praise, blame, rejection, success, are not reflections of truth, but opportunities for self-examination. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself, "If it is endurable, then endure it. Stop complaining." That wasn't just advice for hard times. It was a call to self-awareness. Each rejection you face is a mirror that exposes your hidden dependencies, the parts of your identity built on being liked, needed, or validated. When someone rejects you, what's the first emotion that rises? Hurt, anger, shame? That emotion is your teacher. It points to an attachment, maybe to approval, maybe to control, maybe to the illusion that others owe you understanding. The Stoic doesn't suppress that emotion. They study it. They ask, "Why does this affect me so deeply?" Because beneath every painful rejection lies a deeper truth. You wanted something that was never yours to command, another person's perception. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." That's the real test. Can you remain calm when others misunderstand or reject you? The ego screams for revenge or justification, but the Stoic mind whispers, "Stay silent, observe, learn." Every time you resist defending your worth to those who've denied it, you strengthen the muscle of self-respect. Because the moment you chase validation, you've already surrendered your peace. Seneca warned that he who is everywhere is nowhere. Constantly chasing approval pulls your attention outward, scattering your energy across 1,000 opinions. The Stoic path reverses that direction. It draws your focus inward, where rejection loses its grip. When others walk away, you don't collapse into self-blame or bitterness. You return home to yourself. You ask, "What did this rejection uncover about me that I need to address?" Maybe it reveals that you relied too much on others' praise for confidence. Maybe it shows you still carry old wounds of not being seen. Either way, rejection becomes a revelation, a spotlight on the parts of your character still in training. Modern society hides this truth behind the facade of constant connection. Every app, every platform conditions us to equate approval with identity. But the Stoics lived free from this illusion. Their sense of worth came from virtue, not validation. For Marcus Aurelius, the measure of a person wasn't how others saw them, but how aligned their actions were with reason and integrity. That's why rejection, to a Stoic, is never personal. It's diagnostic. It tells you where your peace is still dependent on others. Think of rejection as a blacksmith's hammer. It doesn't break the sword, it shapes it. Each no, each dismissal, each silence strikes away impurities, pride, insecurity, fear. Over time, what remains is steel, unshakable confidence grounded not in being accepted, but in being authentic. So the next time someone rejects you, resist the urge to take it as a verdict on your worth. Instead ask, what part of me is this moment trying to reveal? That single question transforms rejection from an emotional wound into a psychological awakening. Because once you've used rejection to know yourself, no one can use rejection to control you. But knowing yourself is only the beginning. The Stoics believe that true mastery comes not from reacting less, but from living wiser after each lesson. That leads us to the fourth Stoic way, how to transform rejection into motivation and use it as energy for purpose and progress. 4. Turn rejection into fuel. Transform pain into purpose. Rejection can either paralyze you or propel you. The Stoics always chose the latter. They believed that every obstacle, including rejection, carried within it the seed of strength. Marcus Aurelius captured this beautifully when he wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." The Stoic didn't just endure rejection, he used it. To him, pain was energy waiting to be redirected, not a punishment to be suffered. When you face rejection, your mind naturally fixates on loss, what slipped away, what could have been. But Stoic philosophy flips that lens entirely. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" the Stoic asks, "How can I use this?" That shift in language turns emotion into momentum. Seneca once said, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." He understood that pain, if properly used, forges resilience. The more rejection you face and survive, the less power rejection has over you. Consider the life of Epictetus. Born a slave, he was rejected by society before he ever had a choice. Yet he turned that reality into a philosophical advantage. His lack of freedom made him value inner freedom. His hardships made him a teacher of strength. Every insult, every exclusion became raw material for wisdom. In his teachings, he urged others not to waste energy on things they couldn't control. Instead, to transform every external loss into internal gain. That's the Stoic alchemy of rejection, turning pain into progress. Now imagine a modern example. A person rejected from their dream job. At first, despair sets in. The mind floods with self-doubt. But if they practice Stoic perception, something remarkable happens. Instead of sulking, they ask, "What skill can I sharpen while I wait? What lesson did this rejection highlight?" They start refining their craft, improving discipline, deepening focus. Months later, a better opportunity appears, one that aligns perfectly with their growth. What looked like a closed door was simply redirection toward readiness. That's the Stoic difference. They don't waste pain, they recycle it. They convert rejection into motivation, criticism into challenge, silence into self-work. Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal from his closest friends, yet his response was reflection, not revenge. He wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike your enemy. When rejected, don't become bitter, become better." Every rejection tests your philosophy. It asks, do you really live by what you say you believe? The modern Stoic understands that rejection is not just emotional, it's energetic. The same energy that fuels pain can be redirected toward progress. It's the difference between someone who collapses under rejection and someone who rebuilds from it. The Stoics trained themselves to see every wound as potential, every loss as a lesson. Because purpose isn't found in comfort, it's found in confrontation. Rejection gives you a choice, to wallow in self-pity or to rise in self-discipline. To the Stoics, the answer was always action. If you've been rejected, build something. Write, train, create, learn, evolve. Fill the space that rejection leaves behind with progress so undeniable that even silence becomes applause. Yet, there's a deeper lesson still. The Stoics didn't only see rejection as fuel for external achievement, they saw it as training for the soul. Because the real victory isn't proving others wrong. It's proving to yourself that you can remain whole even when the world says no. That leads us into the fifth and final Stoic way. How to cultivate such inner strength that rejection no longer defines you, but refines you. 5. Build inner strength. Become untouchable. The Stoics didn't seek to avoid rejection, they sought to become immune to its power. The highest goal wasn't comfort, but equanimity, an inner stillness that no insult, loss, or denial could disturb. Marcus Aurelius called this the inner citadel, a fortress within the soul that stands firm no matter what storms outside. To him, peace was not the absence of pain, but mastery over it. And that mastery came from a simple truth. No one can reject you unless you give them the power to define you. When someone rejects you, they're not diminishing your value. They're simply expressing their perspective. Yet most people mistake that opinion for truth. The Stoic separates the two. As Epictetus taught, it's not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them. That means rejection only hurts when you agree with it. When you internalize someone's no as proof of your inadequacy, you hand them control over your peace. The Stoic refuses to do that. He acknowledges the sting, but keeps his worth anchored in something unshakable, his character, his virtue, his reason. Inner strength begins where dependence ends. If your happiness depends on being chosen, you'll always live at the mercy of others. But when your peace depends only on your principles, rejection becomes irrelevant. Seneca once wrote, "He who has great power should use it lightly." The greatest power of all is self-command, the ability to remain calm when ego wants chaos. Every rejection offers a test. Will you let your emotions rule you, or will you rule them? To build that kind of self-mastery, the Stoics practiced negative visualization, imagining loss before it happened. They trained the mind to accept life's volatility. Friends may leave, opportunities may vanish, but the self remains. When you truly grasp this, you stop fearing rejection LTs together. Because how can you be rejected when your acceptance no longer depends on others? The Stoic learns to stand alone, not in bitterness, but in serenity. Picture someone who has spent years seeking approval, from parents, partners, employers. Each rejection feels like a collapse because their self-image is built on being needed. But one day, after reflecting on Marcus Aurelius's meditations, they decide to build a different foundation. They begin journaling daily, not to please others, but to understand themselves. They start acting according to principle, not popularity. Gradually, they notice something profound. Rejection still happens, but it no longer breaks them. It passes like wind through an open window. That's the Stoic power, to remain unmoved by external noise. The more your mind becomes anchored in reason and virtue, the less chaos can shake it. This doesn't mean indifference. It means independence. You can still care deeply, but you no longer cling. You can love without fear of loss, give without expecting return, and act without craving recognition. That's true freedom, not escaping rejection, but transcending it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The modern Stoic must live by this creed. In a world obsessed with validation, to remain calm in the face of rejection is an act of rebellion. It's a quiet declaration that your peace is self-sourced. And once you reach that state, something remarkable happens. Rejection no longer feels like a threat. It feels like guidance. Each no simply refines your direction. Each silence sharpens your solitude. You begin to see that the world's rejection was never personal. It was training. But there's still one final insight the Stoics left behind, a truth that transcends philosophy and touches the essence of human freedom. It's the realization that rejection isn't the end of something. It's the beginning of becoming someone new. Rejection, when viewed through the Stoic lens, isn't the end of a story. It's the beginning of transformation. The Stoics believe that everything that happens, even what feels unbearable, serves a higher purpose if one has the courage to look deeply enough. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it." To him, rejection wasn't random. It was a signal from the universe, a whisper that said, "Evolve." When one door closes, it's not punishment, it's protection. Protection from a path that no longer serves your growth. Every rejection breaks an illusion. It shatters the false belief that your peace comes from people or outcomes. It forces you back into the present, the only place where power truly exists. Think of Epictetus, once owned as property, stripped of freedom and dignity. Society rejected him entirely. Yet from that darkness, he built a philosophy that outlived empires. He used rejection not as proof of weakness, but as evidence of invincibility. That's the Stoic paradox. The more life takes from you, the more you realize it can't take your inner self unless you surrender it. Modern life tempts us to define ourselves by acceptance, social approval, digital applause, validation from strangers. But when rejection strips all that away, it exposes the truth. Who are you when no one claps for you? Most crumble because they've built their identity on sand. The Stoic rebuilds on stone. When others walk away, he doesn't chase. He rebuilds within. When opportunities vanish, he doesn't beg. He creates new ones. The rejection that breaks most people becomes the crucible that forges the Stoic into something rarer, self-contained strength. Seneca wrote that, "Fire tests gold, adversity tests brave men. Rejection is that fire. It burns away weakness, dependence, and self-pity, leaving behind only what's essential. But only if you let it. Most resist. They drown in resentment, replaying the pain, turning rejection into identity. The Stoic does the opposite. He leans into the lesson. He thanks fate for the clarity it brings, because every rejection says, 'This is not your path. Keep walking.' This is where Stoicism becomes more than philosophy. It becomes transformation. Each rejection marks a rebirth, a moment where you get to redefine what truly matters. When Marcus lost loved ones, faced betrayal, and endured endless wars, he didn't curse fate. He wrote instead, 'Love only what happens to you. That is enough.' To love fate, amor fati, is the Stoic's ultimate response to rejection. Not merely to accept it, but to embrace it as part of life's design. Imagine applying this mindset to modern pain. Someone ghosts you. Instead of despair, you feel gratitude for being shown truth sooner rather than later. A company rejects your application. Instead of defeat, you see a redirection toward the work you're meant to do. A dream collapses. Instead of loss, you recognize liberation from illusion. That's not delusion. It's discipline. It's the mind refusing to hand its peace to circumstance. The Stoics understood that everything that leaves your life makes room for what's meant to arrive. Rejection, therefore, is not subtraction. It's refinement. The moment you stop fighting it, you begin to see it for what it truly is. Not life's cruelty, but life's editing. The universe doesn't waste energy keeping you where you don't belong. And when you can meet rejection with gratitude, not bitterness, you reach a level of emotional freedom few ever touch. But there's something even more powerful waiting beyond this understanding. A truth that ties every Stoic teaching together. Because in the end, Handling rejection isn't just about peace or purpose. It's about becoming who you were, Mia, meant to be all along. There comes a point when rejection stops feeling like loss and starts feeling like alignment. The Stoics believed that life's wisdom often arrives disguised as pain. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Whatever happens to you has been waiting to happen since the beginning of time." In that single line lies the essence of Stoic acceptance, the understanding that nothing truly meant for you will ever reject you. Rejection only removes what's false, so the true can find its way in. It's not the end of your path, it's the clearing of it. Every person carries within them a logos, a divine spark, a natural direction unique to their soul. The Stoics taught that inner peace comes when you live according to this nature, but the modern world constantly pulls you away from it, with comparison, distraction, and ego-driven ambition. Rejection is the hand that pushes you back toward authenticity. When a door closes, it's often because you were walking through the wrong one. Fate isn't punishing you, it's protecting your purpose. Seneca once advised, "Fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling." This means that life will keep redirecting you, sometimes gently, sometimes through pain, until you align with what you were born to become. Rejection is one of life's most effective teachers because it gets your attention. It strips away illusion faster than success ever could. The person who learns to listen to rejection, instead of resenting it, begins to live with incredible clarity. Consider the story of a person who spends years chasing external validation, relationships that complete them, careers that define them, achievements that make them feel worthy. They win some, lose others, and with every rejection, they crumble a little more. Until one day, they realize what the Stoics knew all along. Nothing outside you can complete you. You are not what others choose. You are what you choose to become. That realization is liberation. Rejection, in that moment, ceases to be pain. It becomes awakening. Epictetus taught that freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. When someone rejects you, you are offered that freedom. The freedom to stop chasing, to stop begging, to stop bending your nature for approval. You return to yourself, stripped but stronger. Because what's left after rejection is always real. It's the part of you that didn't need permission to exist. This is the hidden gift of rejection. It brings you face to face with your authentic self. It dissolves pretense. It forces you to ask, who am I without what I lost? And if you can sit in that silence without fear, you'll find something unshakable, your essence. Marcus called it the ruling center within, the part of you untouched by judgment or failure. That's the true victory. Not winning the approval of others, but mastering the approval of your own conscience. In that space of inner clarity, you stop fighting fate and start flowing with it. You begin to see rejection not as an interruption, but as initiation, the beginning of a deeper journey toward the life that fits your soul. And when you reach this level of understanding, the external world loses its power over you. You stop asking, why did this happen to me? And begin saying, this happened for me. That shift is the difference between living as a victim of rejection and living as its student. But the Stoic journey doesn't end there. Because understanding rejection intellectually is one thing, embodying it spiritually is another. The final stage is transcendence, the ability to meet rejection with peace, gratitude, and love. To look at every no and see a quiet thank you. That's the destination of the Stoic path. Not resistance, but reverence. In the end, rejection is not your enemy. It's your greatest ally in disguise. It's life's way of carving you into the person you were always meant to be. The Stoics never begged for approval because they knew that the world cannot reject what it never truly owned. Marcus Aurelius, surrounded by betrayal, loss, and the constant weight of empire, still found peace by reminding himself that everything that happens is just as it should. Seneca, exiled from Rome and cast aside by those he served, found freedom in solitude and used his words to guide generations. Epictetus, born into chains, discovered a level of freedom that kings could only envy. What all three men shared was this truth: rejection liberates the soul that refuses to be defined by it. The Stoic doesn't ask the world for validation. He creates it within. He doesn't crumble when the crowd turns away. He thanks fate for clearing the noise. Because when rejection strips away all illusions, what remains is your essence, raw, real, and resilient. That's where power is born. The most peaceful people you'll ever meet are not those who never faced rejection, but those who faced it so completely that they stopped fearing it. When you no longer fear rejection, you are free to speak truth, to love deeply, to act boldly, because nothing external holds you hostage anymore. The next time someone rejects you, remember, they're not closing a door on your worth. They're opening a door to your wisdom. You can spend your energy chasing the one who left, or you can use that same energy to become someone they could never break. The Stoics would choose the latter. They understood that suffering without reflection leads to bitterness, but suffering with awareness leads to enlightenment. Every rejection is an invitation, an initiation into deeper peace, sharper purpose, and truer strength. The real challenge isn't escaping rejection, it's transforming it. When someone walks away, let them go, but never let go of the lesson. When life says no, reply with calm gratitude. Thank you for redirecting me. When you're overlooked, unloved, or underestimated, let that silence become your sanctuary for growth. You don't need to fight rejection. You need to use it. Because the Stoic path is not about controlling life. It's about mastering response. The world can take anything from you, except your ability to rise. Marcus once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." That is the ultimate Stoic answer to rejection. Don't chase the ones who don't see your value. Become the one who doesn't need to prove it. Let your actions be your argument, your discipline your defense, and your peace your proof. Rejection then loses its sting because you've transcended the game entirely. You're no longer reacting to life, you're harmonizing with it. And when you finally reach that state, you'll look back on every rejection and smile. You'll see that every person who walked away, every opportunity that vanished, every silence that once broke your heart, was secretly sculpting your strength. You'll realize that rejection didn't delay your destiny, it designed it. So the next time rejection visits you, greet it not with despair, but with dignity. Stand tall, breathe deeply, and whisper to yourself the Stoic creed, "I am not defined by what I lose, but by what I learn." Because in that moment, when you refuse to be broken, when you choose growth over grief, you become untouchable. You become the very embodiment of Stoic wisdom, calm amidst chaos, free amidst loss, and strong enough to thank rejection for making you unstoppable,